So many of you have known me for the 20 plus years I've been working for the Education Resource Center at NASA. And you know me in my science context. But there's a whole segment of West Virginia who knows me as the robot guy. And there's several different stories of the origins of these initiatives here. But in 2013, a fellow named Greg Miller in Wayne County called me. He goes, "Hey, I heard you're running these Lego League tournaments at Fairmont State. Would you host a VEX robotics competition?" And I said, "Sure, I have no idea what that is, but let's do it." And so that first year, we had somewhere between 13 and 16 teams come out, and we borrowed fields we didn't have. We got shown how to use Tournament Manager, and we ran the first VEX Robotics State Championship, and teams moved on to the World Festival. Subsequently, my team and I have been petitioning the Secondary Sports and Activities Commission. I know everyone in here, is very involved in many of our different sports we have, soccer and football and other activities, even cheerleading. But I argued before the board year after year after year, robotics belongs as one of our sports as well. And it took quite a while for them to come around, but eventually they said, "Okay, so why do you want this?" And I said, "Well, we have robotics in some of our counties, but not all of them. And I think some of the resistance would be overcome if we had some of this positive peer pressure that it can be exerted through the SSAC and some of the recognition that we really are changing the culture of our state." And so I'm proud to say that we'll be now having our third SSAC event this coming December. So there are many sports, but there's band as an activity, and robotics is now the only sanctioned other co-curricular activity in West Virginia. And VEX Robotics Competition is the platform that we utilize for that. So we have now experienced tremendous growth in our state across the different programs that the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation support. It's a nonprofit organization, and they coordinate the VEX IQ for elementary and middle school students, the VEX Robotics Competition for middle and high school students. And when I heard about this drone program, I said, well, we probably have a small window to be first in the nation for like a week or a year, who knows, but let's do it. And so we jumped on with everything we had to try and grow this aerial drone competition program. And it rolled out in 2020, which you may recall was a kind of unique year. And so no tournaments were held. But in 2021, there were 2 tournaments held. And we held one of them in Huntington, West Virginia. And it turned out to be the largest in the nation. So I'm just going to hang on to that and say we did it. We held the largest drone tournament in the country. But the real punchline is we've continued to grow our drone program. We have students here, you guys wave, right here. We have drone students here that have been competing for several years. It's a whole new population of kids that weren't involved in the other robotics programs. And that program is not only growing, but we're continuing to host some of the largest tournaments in the state of West Virginia here at Fairmont State University with the support of NASA. So when the board was talking about having possible keynote speakers, I proposed, well, we could ask, it couldn't hurt, the CEO of the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. So Dan Mantz is the Chief Executive Officer for the REC Foundation. He joined the REC Foundation in 2017 after 30 years in the robotics and manufacturing industries. He's responsible for leading the REC Foundation's strategic direction to provide more students the opportunity to engage in STEM activities and careers. The REC Foundation is one of the world's leading science, technology, engineering, and mathematics nonprofit organizations whose mission is to spark student interest and involvement in STEM by engaging students in hands-on, affordable, and sustainable curriculum-based robotics programs. The REC Foundation provides educators with services, solutions, and a community that allows students to learn and embrace the technical and interpersonal skills necessary for them to succeed in the 21st century. Whether it's a competitive event, a workshop, a camp, or conference, The RAC Foundation is committed to promoting technology and related student and professional advancement so that one day these programs become accessible to all students across all schools in all communities. Last season, West Virginia had 474 teams participating in the RAC Foundation programs, including the Aerial Drone Competition, Technology Student Association, VEX IQ, VEX V5, and VEX University. We expect these programs to continue their growth for the foreseeable future. And so John, who's been helping with all the AV work, and I were talking about a year ago, and I said, you know, West Virginia gets measured on bad things per capita, but we never get measured on good things that way. I said, how many robotics teams do we have and drone teams do we have per capita? And it turns out we're crushing it. So with only 1.8 million people in our state, the number of robotics teams and kids that we have engaged is unparalleled, almost across anywhere in the nation. And I'm super excited today to welcome Dan Mantz to give us a little bit of insight into what inspires the RAC Foundation and the programs that we have that impact kids worldwide. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a hard act to follow. I should just let him talk about the RAC Foundation and our programs. He's such a passionate supporter of what we do. And he didn't even mention that Fairmount State University has been the host of our Drones Regional Championships the last 2 years. And honestly, it's probably the best drones event we have in our program. And it's to be applauded that this state is taking the lead in drones education and drones competitions. And a lot of it is because of Todd and his teams. And we can't thank you enough for all of your support of our programs, Todd. I also want to thank all of you for inviting me. Everybody says thank you for coming to our state, but who would not want to come to West Virginia in the fall and see these colors? It was an absolutely beautiful morning. For me, it was still a work day. I still had meetings and calls, but I sat out on that back deck and I was watching people kayak and watching the sun peek through the clouds. It was a beautiful day. So actually, thank you very much for having me. So, all right. Oops, he said slide, right? Yep. Okay. Haha. It's always nice to have AV people on a staff. I get to do a lot of speeches, and I'm very fortunate. I get to travel across the country and sometimes even across the world and talk to people. And our primary audience is generally educators. But I've never talked to a focus group that was just science educators. It's usually CTE, robotics, math. So a little different kind of pressure talking to science, because I'm sure many of you in here are biological or earth sciences or something like that, and generally I'm talking to engineering type people. So I've tried to adjust my message to be as inclusive as possible. But again, I'm Dan. I've been with the REC Foundation as a board member since 2016 and as the CEO since 2017. But a little bit about me is I actually grew up in rural America. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I went to college in Michigan. And when I used to drive across the Ohio Turnpike into Pennsylvania, I used to actually sing, take me home country roads to the place I belong, Pennsylvania, Mountain Mama. So, and it actually flows really, really well. But growing up in central Pennsylvania, I used to come to West Virginia to go whitewater rafting, and my best friend was from West Virginia as well. But I understand the challenges of rural America, and one of the things we've really tried to do at the REC Foundation is make sure that our programs are focused on rural America. And I have a slide later on that actually shows the impact. So growing up in rural Pennsylvania, my choices for college were Penn State. But I had a guidance counselor that said, maybe, what's your passion? And I always wanted to be an industrial engineer, because Lee Iacocca, if you're old enough to remember him, he was from where I grew up, right? And he was an industrial engineer, and he was in the auto industry. So I found out about a school called GMI, which is now Kettering University in Flint, Michigan. And when I started there in 1986, yes, I am that old. I like that picture that you guys show, the first one, because I'm a lot younger in that picture. But when I started there, Phil Donahue did a show from Flint talking about the decline of U.S. manufacturing. and that it was all going to Mexico, and that was even before the rise of China manufacturing. And here I am, I'm about to start my career at General Motors, right? And everybody's saying the auto industry is going to die and U.S. manufacturing is going to die. And that's had a huge, profound impact on me and how we run the programs at the REC Foundation. So once I did graduate, I did spend 27 years in the manufacturing industry. My wife, who's here sitting at the table, Heidi, she will tell you that I visited plants all over the world. I did projects in 5 of the continents, 5 of the 7, probably 30 countries. So I was a traveling controls engineer, and I spent 20 years at Fanuc Robotics, and I was actually a robotics engineer. It's never my plan to run a robotics not-for-profit, but it was my plan to be a robotics engineer, and I got to do that. Well, when moved to Texas in 2013, I got a phone call that said, hey, your name was given to us, and there's a sheet metal company here that makes products for the data centers and IT industries, and we think you're the right fit to come and run it. So I moved my wife. She was very kind, and our kids that weren't through high school already, and we left the comforts of Michigan with cool weather and big leafy trees and fall colors to go down to Texas where it's really hot, right? Hot and flat. But it was a good opportunity for me. And the neat thing about that job is we actually did compete head-to-head against China in manufacturing, and sometimes we won. And it was interesting that, everybody's saying manufacturing's dying, but we could prove that we could compete. And the nice thing about working in that industry is I actually had a lot more time than I did at Fanuc. Fanuc was grueling 80-hour work weeks, and we designed IT products, and we had a sheet metal factory, and rarely did I have to work weekends. So I started coaching robotics. But the real impetus about coaching robotics is we have 4 children, my wife and I, and 3 of the 4 participated in robotics. But our middle daughter, Karis, who's an absolutely genius when it comes to math, so good at math, she was excited to join the robotics team. She was also good at art, and I'll never forget them saying that, hey, you should design the posters. And I'll never forget when they did machine training, and 8 students signed up, 6 boys and 2 girls, and Karis and the other girl were the last group, and they ran out of time, and they didn't get to do the machine training, and they were asked to sweep up the machine pilings and stuff like that. So she left robotics, and I always thought it was a travesty that she didn't have that great experience. And so that's one of the reasons I started coaching, because when our youngest daughter said she wanted to do robotics, I wanted to make sure she got the same opportunity that the boys did. Well, it turns out coaching robotics directly led to what I'm doing now. So as a robotics coach, I would go to VEX and I would say, you guys do a really bad job of supporting VEX Robotics in Texas. And my friend happened to be the president of VEX, so he had me join the board in 2016. I realized that there's a lot of things that could be improved, and I gave a full report. And they called me, they said, hey, Rack Solutions is running pretty good. You should resign, and we'll offer you the job as CEO of the REC Foundation. So that was in 2017. And they assured me that running a not-for-profit would be easy. I'm telling you, it's not. So anybody in here work in the not-for-profit world, I swear that most of my job is asking for money, which is something I'm not very good at. But I've been there since 2017. I took the job with one big qualification. I said that VEX Robotics is growing, it has the chance to be the largest robotics competition in the world, which we've accomplished. I said, but not everybody wants to go into robotics. I said, we need to provide pathways for other students that don't want to do robotics. And the board agreed. I really think they were just appeasing me. I really didn't think they'd say I was serious about it. And we've really grown to have 3 primary programs. Of course, VEX Robotics Competition. And who in here has heard of the REC Foundation before today? That's probably about 20%. That's about typical. Who had heard of VEX Robotics before today? Yeah, it's always a lot more people. So we're not VEX Robotics. We are the REC Foundation, and we run that program, and we have grown. But that's one pillar. The other pillar is drones. There are so many students that weren't interested in mobile robotics for one reason or another, so we launched a drones program at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, so that was bad timing, but it's now grown to be the largest drones competition in the US, and really excited that we have 6 students here that are from our drones program. And then finally, what's so near and dear to me is our workforce development program. So I have my clock on. I do not want to keep people from dessert. I do have this presentation. There's a lot of additional slides in here because if anybody wants a copy later, I can send it to you. So when you see me go through this and you see 86 slides, I don't plan to go over 86 slides, but I have a lot of resource slides at the end. So first of all, the mission of the REC Foundation. You can Google it, you can test this, but our mission is to provide every educator, so our audience is the educator, with competition, education, and workforce readiness programs to increase student interest in STEM and computer science. So I didn't just make that word educator for today. We actually, when I became the CEO, we had a really deep talk about who we wanted to be, and everybody thought that the students were our customer, but we realized that the educator is really the customer. We really want to make sure we're giving you the tools that you can develop the programs for the students. So the students are the end user, but we feel that the customer is our educator, and I'm not just saying that pandering to the educators in the audience. That's been our mission for a while. One of the things is we didn't have a vision, but I thought it was important for us to have a vision, and we actually see a future where every student designs and innovates as part of a team, overcomes failure, perseveres, and emerges confident in their ability to meet global challenges. And I think whether you're a teacher here in science that focuses on technology or engineering or biology or whatever, this vision is applicable across the board. We actually want to give our students as challenges. We do not want to make it easy for them, and we want them to overcome those missteps and persevere. And we find with that vision that we have really, really good results. As an organization, our values are passion, integrity, and excellence. That's what we're striving for. We definitely hire, I used to hire a lot of people that were really good engineers or really good accountants and stuff like that. And after a couple years, we realized that the best employees at the REC Foundation were those that are passionate about what we're doing. It's interesting that those people like Todd that are so passionate about this program are really what makes it successful. But we also want to have integrity in what we do too. It's tough. This is a tough industry, and we have to earn your trust and keep your trust. And of course, we strive for excellence. We make a lot of mistakes. I encourage my staff to try things, to think out of the box and make mistakes. And as I tell them, I said, in any course of a week, I make way more mistakes than they do combined because we're trying new stuff. But we're striving for excellence. We're trying to improve, and that's so we can give the best programs possible. So a little bit about us. We started in 2010. We are a 501c3, as Todd said. We're up to 132 employees. When I started the REC Foundation, I think we were 40. So we've had tremendous growth in the last 8 years. We're a unique organization because we don't run the competitions ourselves. We run VEX Robotics World Championship, a couple drones events, and some workshops. But generally, we rely on what we call event partners to run our events for us. And this past year, we had over 3,500 workshops, scrimmages, camps, and competitions. And the competitions were over 3,000 of that across the globe. And of course, we are definitely a volunteer-based organization. If you haven't volunteered at a drones or VEX Robotics event, please see Todd. He'll put you to work. Last year, our volunteers accumulated over $26 million. We could not do our programs without volunteers. It's the one thing that actually keeps me up at night. What happens if all our volunteers en masse leave? We have no program. I do a lot of podcasts. It's weird. People call me. I think it's just because of the title of the company, but I don't think I have anything insightful to offer, but I do a lot of podcasts. And one of the things I said one time, and it stuck, is that the REC Foundation, we believe that any educator can teach STEM and computer science. And just like any adult can mentor a robotics team, and any student can engineer a robot, any team can run a robotics camp, and any school can host a robotics competition. Don't believe that we're the brains behind all this. We believe that we can just give the tools to the community to do this work for us, and that's always resonated with me. So over the course of the slides tonight, I hope you see what we've tried to set up so that you can be successful as educators and reach these students. So why the REC Foundation? I don't want this to be a sales pitch, so I've tried to mingle in some data, but more like the philosophy of the programs we have with hopes that they'll resonate with you. But first of all, why robotics? So this data is from a Michigan Tech study, Utah State study, and Georgia Institute of Technology studies. If you go on the internet and you search why robotics, you'll see a lot of good data from the REC Foundation and from other competitive programs. But I had like 6 pages of stats and I deleted most of them. I'm like, it'd get really dull quick, but I thought these are the ones that really jumped out at me. 90%, 2% of students that participate are more likely to take advanced STEM courses in high school or college. And we're not an organization that pushes kids to college, but we do want our kids to take challenging courses. This is really important. 97% of our students show more persistence and patience than their peers. 97%. I think when you're on a competitive team, whether it's athletics or academics, you learn how to get along and you learn how to problem solve, and our data shows that. 96% of students show desire to collaborate with their peers. Every year I have parents come up to me and say, my kid had no friends, my kid did everything as a loner, and they joined robotics, and the first couple weeks they wanted it to do it their way, and they've had to learn how to be good teammates and how to collaborate, and I think that's a direct result of how we've tried to set up our program. 93% of students demonstrate positive work ethic. Goodness knows we need that right now. 75% of students are interested in taking additional math or science classes. I mean, we need that in this country, right? We need people taking math and science, not necessarily to get engineering degrees, but just to work on robots and advanced manufacturing. And students start playing with drones or robots, and now all of a sudden they want to do computer programming or they want to take algebra. And then finally, 83% of students said they were interested in taking engineering courses in college. And that's a STEM-focused statistic. But again, we're trying to attract those students. There are other programs out there that attract the students that are already interested in this. We're trying to attract the students that maybe have never thought about robotics or drones. So, why should all students be exposed to STEM programs such as robotics and drones? Now, I will be honest with you, this slide is typically geared to about 6th grade girls, but I thought I'd see if it would work here. So who here likes donuts, for example? Yeah, most people. Who here likes chocolate cake? Okay. Who here likes creme brulee? Who here likes Scrapple? There's some people here that like Scrapple. You can tell I'm a country boy from Pennsylvania, Scrapple, right? Well, at the end of the day in our program, not everybody likes everything. But what we're trying to do is expose our students to these programs. And at the end of the day, if we have a workshop, and we may have a workshop in California that Google sponsors that has 1,000 girls go to it, not everybody is going to like robotics and drones. But everybody in this room probably knows what basketball is and knows what football is and volleyball, and we all learned it in school, right? Because we all had to take PE, and whether we were on the high school basketball team or the baseball team, we all did it in gym class. And so when we grow up, and some of us may not like these sports, but we all know what it is. And that's what we're trying to do at the REC Foundation, is at least do exposure. So when we have a workshop, 1/3 of the students absolutely love it, and they ask, how can I get onto a robotics or drones team? Another 1/3 thought, hey, this was fun. I'm glad I'm glad I came. It wasn't a waste for me to waste my Saturday or Sunday doing this. And if I ever have an opportunity, maybe I'll do it again. And 1/3 of the students absolutely hated it. They had no interest in drones or robotics, and they wish they would have been home, listening to music on Saturday. But at the end of the day, 100% of those students have been exposed to it. And in this world, when you go to a grocery store and there's a robot stocking the shelves, or when you go to any distribution center and people that used to lift heavy boxes are now being replaced by automation, it's good to know what this technology is. And so we believe, as science educators out here, at least exposing students to this technology is a big gift that we can give to them. I also like this slide because it's got cookies on it too. So, about our programs, I won't go into too much detail. There are a lot of great STEM programs out there, a lot of them. And what makes us different? We really focus on being affordable, accessible, and sustainable. Affordable means that when you purchase our kit, you use that kit for multiple years. Sure, parts wear out, gears wear out, motors might wear out, but for the most part, when you buy a kit, we use it. So a lot of times people say, why don't you do 3D printing or machine tooling and stuff like that? It's not what our program is. We want it to be affordable, and having a kit-based program is how we do it. That doesn't mean you build the exact same robot. We allow a lot of engineering and customization, but we have parts that can be reused year from year. Participation in our programs is self-paced. We are a year-round program. Practically, it's about 10 months, but our season starts when the next season ends. It's no more of these really small windows where you have to quickly design and build. We purposely try to make we purposely make our programs year-round so that everyone, regardless of your level, your demographics, have a chance to participate. And then finally, it's sustainable. If you are interested in being an educator on our programs or a coach, we give you the resources for free. There's not a lot of people out there that give stuff for free, but all our resources, which are standards aligned, they're available to the educators, and it's not something that we're selling. So we believe that the coaches are the facilitators, and we want to give them the resources to be successful. Our programs do not require a background in engineering to be successful. And I think that's one of the things that really surprises people when they get involved in our drones program, like these students or our VEX program, is again, it's a student-led, and I have some slides on this initiative, so you do not need to be an engineer or have an engineer on your staff. It doesn't mean there aren't teams out there that do very well because dad's an engineer. It just means that the genesis of our program is you don't have to be an engineer. And it's also a program, again, because we're using a standard set of parts. If you don't have heavy machinery or a shop, you can do our program. I already said it can be reviewed, and again, we provide the curriculum and guidance for you to be successful. This is our brag slide. I call it our brag slide. When we started the REC Foundation in 2017, we had 12,000 teams, and this past year we were over 60,000. And we actually start the counter at 0. We don't play any games saying, if you were registered, you get 3 years. We start the counter at 0 every single May. So our largest program now in the past year is the VEX Go Robotics competition. That's for early elementary. It was actually, we developed it with the help of NASA. It's a long story, I won't go into it, but NASA really felt that it was important to make sure that students are interested in STEM and engineering before 4th and 5th grade, when they have their mind made up of what they think it is. So that's our fastest growing competition. Our late elementary program has about 9,000 teams, middle school 13, high school 15,000. Those are the programs we're most known for. Last year we had about 1,600 drones teams. This year will probably be about 2,600 drones teams. It's our fastest growing program. We also have a small university programs. It's small, only 278 teams, but it's really important because those university teams help the educators and the coaches run other teams. The program that I love so much is our factory automation competition. This is actually an old data, but we were up to 3,200 teams last year. I think we're double that now. TSA, I heard you say that West Virginia is a TSA state, so the TSA robotics program is done by the REC Foundation. At least it was until this year. Some of the states are doing independent, but we run the TSA robotics program. We also do Skills USA. I don't know if Skills USA is done in West Virginia or not, but we do their robotics program as well. And then industry certifications. We had 4,000 students earn state-recognized industry certifications through our program last year. Overall, we had over 500,000 students in 109 countries. So we're pretty big. My hardest job, I think, as CEO is letting people know who we are. A lot of people say, hey, aren't you VEX Robotics? We get that a lot, or people don't even know. A lot of people say, are you first? No, we're not first. We're in the same market. They're a great program, too. We're the REC Foundation with a huge impact, but our identity still needs a little bit of work on. I think I need to show more donut slides. I think that usually interests people, so. This is a bar chart. This is brag slide 2. Everybody knows what happened in 2020. Well, it happened in February, March, so we actually had a record year before we shut down. But in 2021, we didn't cease to exist. We invested over $1 million in infrastructure called Live Remote Tournament, LRT. We made a decision that during the heights of the pandemic, educators, parents, and students needed robotics, not getting away from it. So while other companies shut down or they went to virtual, we kept our program going. But what we did is we created a game. As long as you had a laptop with a computer and you had a feel in robots, we created a game where you actually competed. And we even had a world championship that year that had 36 countries participate in all 50 states. And it was real robots with real game elements. You were just on the field by yourself. But the game was a strategy where you still had to collaborate with another team and against other teams. And it was really, really successful. So while we dropped in half, to 14,000, we didn't go to zero. So the year after the pandemic in 2022, we rebounded to our pre-pandemic numbers. And I think it's because we kept the students interested and the educators interested and the volunteers interested. We're in an alliance with all the other robotics programs out there, and most of those organizations still have not hit their pandemic numbers, their pre-pandemic numbers. And as you can see, we're basically triple the size now. So that was a strategic decision that we made that I think really made a difference. People ask me a lot, what makes your program different than, say, FIRST or BEST? And ours is that we're student-centered. So what does student-centered mean? There's a lot of information in these slides. I'm not going to read them to you. I highlighted the things that I thought were really important. But we consider student-centered to be a framework that prioritizes student leadership and hands-on learning. So we've actually built our program around this concept of student-centered. To put it easy as possible, the students do the work, right? And there's nothing wrong with other approaches, but our data shows when the students are there designing the robot themselves, doing the CAD themselves, building themselves, engineering, driving themselves, they're more likely to stay involved and they're more likely to learn. And so we made that decision to go student-centered in 2018. Believe me, it comes with a lot of challenges because the number one complaint I deal with, and I actually get lawsuits every year, is some teams will get disqualified from an event because they saw a parent building the robot or a coach was doing the coding and stuff like that, and they don't win any awards. And so we have a whole philosophy around the student-centered, which also means you reward the teams that follow it. So it's not easy, but we have empirical data that shows it's working. So Purdue University, MIT, where all competitive robotics started with the late, great Dr. Woody Flowers, Cal Berkeley, Stanford, Kettering University, WPI, all these universities have robotics programs. And over the last 5 years, especially the last 2 or 3 years, all the deans of engineering are saying, man, the kids that are coming from the VEX robotics competition are blowing everybody away. I mean, all the kids that get accepted into engineering are talented, but these kids know how to build robots and program right off the start. And that doesn't mean that other programs don't have kids that are doing well. They're just saying on overall that the students from our program are doing really, really well in these programs because they've been hands-on doing it since they started robotics. And interestingly enough, at MIT this year, the original robotics competition started by Dr. Woody Flowers was won by a VEX Robotics alumni this year, and we're really, really proud of that. So the student-centered is kind of what our identity is. And ultimately, like I said, we think it's important because when given the opportunities, to test their own ideas and learn from their successes and, persevere through these problems and situations, they'll get better. If you're told what robot to build, or you're watching engineers build and design a robot for you, of course it's inspiring, of course it's a great thing, but when you're actually doing it yourself, it's even a more productive thing. 2 slides here on what we provide guidelines. We don't just say be student-centered. We actually provide guidelines for the adults. And a good one here is, I got 2 slides of this. I won't go through them, but like focus on learning over winning. We want to emphasize the importance of personal growth over the desire to win. And that's a really hard lesson when you're talking, preteens and teenagers. Everybody wants to win. But the idea is for us to help students appreciate the skills that they learn through the competition. It's not necessarily the trophy, it's the skills you're learning. Although I've had many people come up to me and say, if the trophy's it's not so important, why do you keep giving out trophies? Which is a good point. So our programs, this is a brand new slide. It's premiered today. It was developed less than 4 hours ago. I was telling Todd this. The one opportunity of doing this thing today is I do these events, and we typically talk about VEX Robotics, and then we say, hey, we also do workforce programs, and we also do drones. But with our dynamic growth in the last couple years, almost all our programs are equal as far as impact. Now, VEX Robotics program is by far our largest, but from an impact, we've, as an organization, really focusing on 3 areas right now. So that's STEM education and robotics, primarily through our VEX Robotics programs, workforce development, and our aerial drones competition. So this is our continuum, and behind all these VEX programs is education as well. So, I mean, you probably would have been more entertained if VEX was up here right now. They have an incredible education department, but all these programs the VEX programs have education. So our high school programs are our largest simply because we do Skills USA, JROTC, both their robotics program and their drones program have partnered with the REC Foundation, and they vetted everybody out in the country, and they chose us for both programs. But you can see that we go all the way from early elementary through post-secondary. So workforce development, I'm going to talk briefly about all three of these. I got to see what time it is. Okay, I got 10, 15 minutes probably. So our goal for workforce development is to improve workforce development education and interest by providing a clear path for students to prepare for advanced manufacturing careers, help close manufacturing skills gaps, and prepare the manufacturing workforce for career development. So we strongly believe at the REC Foundation how we can really help the United States is making sure that our students are prepared for workforce. So, you know, workforce readiness means having these students prepared, and it's the knowledge, skills, abilities, and attributes. It's actually the technical piece is probably the least important piece. So why do we need to do this? By the end of 2030, an estimated 3.9 million jobs will require proficiency in technical fields. So 3.9 million of our jobs by 2030. And we have a huge, huge shortage in the labor market here. They're projecting that 1.4 million of those jobs will go unfulfilled. So that means they'll either outsource or not bring the manufacturing back here. So we have a huge gap. And if you talk to anybody in industry, any manufacturing company, they will share this same stat. You know, this is a pretty interesting one. You know, the median income for STEM occupations is $101,000 compared to $46,680. Now, I almost didn't show this slide at an educators conference, right? Because we did a big project in Nevada. Tesla funded this big project to train all these educators and give them robotics skills and workforce skills. And we were really, really successful. And after a year, they all quit education to work for Tesla at 3 times the money. So if you ever hear me on a podcast and they say, what's the number one thing you think we should do? And again, I'm not pandering, I promise you. I always say the number one thing we should do is be increasing what we pay our educators, because otherwise the good educators, unless you really have a passion for it, you're going to go maybe chase the dollars, right? But for your students that aren't going into education, this is a pretty powerful stat, right? You can make a lot more money going into a STEM career. But you need to stay as teachers. We need you. So when we go out and we survey companies, and that's a big part of my job is talking to the manufacturing companies and the tech companies. This is the skills that they see they need. Teamwork, collaboration, problem solving, time management, critical thinking, communications. They don't say the actual like building a robot or programming a robot or motors. This is what they say they need. The term used to be soft skills. I'm trying to rebrand it as workforce skills. So 10 years from now, if everybody calls these workforce skills, I worked hard, it was good. But so these were traditionally called, but that's what our programs are trying to do, because that's what our industries are telling us what they need. They can teach the tech skills, they can teach that, but they really need students to come in and have those soft workforce skills already. So we have 3 primary programs for workforce development. Factory automation competition, I have a couple slides on that. Our aerial drones competition, I have some of that. And then our industry certification program, which is now in 15 states. And like in the state of Florida, we're like number 2 and 4. So it's a good way, and I have some slides on that, but it's a good way to have your students earn some career readiness credentialing. Factory automation competition. So this is something that the REC Foundation developed with a grant from the DoD, Department of Defense, back in 2018, 2019. And basically the students build a small factory and they compete. And they learn industry, manufacturing, and workforce development skills. They collaborate on a project-based learning in an industry setting, and they also learn Industry 4.0. I'm not sure how many people here have heard that term, but it's the big buzzword in technology and manufacturing. But I love this slide right here, because the main reason we got the funding to develop this program wasn't to actually do the competition or to teach skills. It was actually to increase interest in manufacturing. Manufacturing had this bad reputation as like, dirty, dangerous jobs. Nobody wanted to go to manufacturing. And we've lost a lot of our manufacturing competitiveness in this country. So the DoD's like literally, REC Foundation, can you help change the paradigm? And so you can see that, these are pre and post assessments. Pre-assessment, 33% of our students wanted to get a technical degree, 53% afterwards, a 61%. Now the next slide is amazing to me. Pre-training, 50% wanted to get a bachelor's degree, and it declined to 47%. And so many people said, you must be horrified with that stat. 6% more people, or less people want to get, bachelor's degrees. And I'm like, that's not what this program was about. And to me, this data shows that we actually achieved what we were doing. It wasn't fake, right? Now, we don't not encourage people to go get a bachelor's degree. We need, scientists for sure. We need engineers and stuff like that. But not everybody has the aptitude. And we wanted to show that, you can get a technical degree versus having to get a 4-year bachelor's degree if that's what you're interested in. This did that. Industry PLC training jumped from 33% to 73%. But industry robotics training, which is the whole mission of this program, jumped from 63 to 100%. So 100% of the students after going through this program are interested in industry robotics training. And then machine operation training, a huge need in this country right now. That jumped from 30 to 73%. So the outcomes from this grant we got from DoD and this program that we put together was very, very successful. To this day, they still actually highlight this program. So as educators here, this work cell, the first version was an REC Foundation. We're not a product company. We're a not-for-profit. VEX has created a new version called the CTE Work Cell. It's fantastic, and these are some of the content that comes with it. So when you buy the work cell, these are the STEM labs and courses that you get. And it's already, as an educator, it takes about a semester. Some educators make it a 2-semester program. I think it nicely fits into a semester, but those are all the STEM cells and curriculum that goes with that. I was going to play these videos. I just wanted to show you, this is the first version of the work cell. This is the one at the REC Foundation. And every year we do a competition called the Factory Automation Competition. And the work cell comes with a robot. But the smart kids that won it first and second this year took the robot out. And this is what they did. They came up with, it was a packaging, right? So you have to randomly pull a card, and it tells you, okay, you have to package. So think Amazon, right? So you've ordered a shirt and a book and a chemistry set on Amazon, and now it has to be packaged. And that was what the challenge this year is. And the students figured out that they could make a mechanism that pushed the packages on the conveyor and speed up the conveyor and sort that worked better than a robot. And I thought it was really fascinating. If you look closely, you can see a phone there with a stopwatch. The winners of the competition are based on time, but also accuracy. So those sneaky kids, right? They figure out a better way to do it. And to me, that's not a failure from the REC Foundation. It's actually a success that the students were smart enough to figure that out. Because the students that used the robot, it was much slower because of the robot motion. And honestly, that's real life too. I mean, there's times that we think we need to do technology, and sometimes the old way is better. All right, let's see if it's going to let me go to the next slide. Probably hit escape, and this is our great AV person. It's funny, when I was a parent and I came from robotics, my kids were getting into technology, and I said my kids would never be smarter than me at technology. I was going to make sure that I was on top of everything. Yeah, by the time my kids were in middle school, they knew this stuff better than I did. Here's an example of the current VEX CTE. This one shows the arm, doing the palletizing. So, have any of you seen this before? Or are any of you CTE teachers in here, or tech teachers? A couple. Yeah, this is a really neat program. It's we've partnered with the large robotics companies now, and this is a really good starting point for them to get the big certifications. And I'm probably going to need your help again. I just wanted to make sure the behind the scenes people got some stage time. Wasn't that considerate of me? All right, so industry certs. Again, this is something that may interest you no matter what type of science education you do. We offer industry certs. We offer 3. And basically, the benefits of these are workforce development. It prepares the students for industry before they graduate. If they're doing post-secondary prep, they arrive with a certified foundation level of knowledge. And then it's also validation of CTE instruction as well. And so, like I said, we're I think 15 states, 2 more pending, and it's really affordable. A voucher costs like $15, and it takes 3 vouchers to take the exams. And again, these can be funded through Perkins funding, and it's just a neat opportunity. STEM robots, I'll quickly touch on this. This is our VEX Robotics program, which is what most of you are familiar with. When we have an event, it's one event, but 3 different VEX Robotics competitions. We have the game challenge matches, which is, depending on the level, it's robots competing against each other or robots competing with each other to get the highest score. But we also have our driving skills. There are students out there, coaches out there that just want to show they have the best robot. So this is one robot on the field by itself, and then autonomous coding skills. Coding skills are so important to our students. It's like learning to read 200 years ago when they started in Europe, started teaching people to read. Learning how to code at an early level is so important now. We have in-person tournaments. We have leagues, skills, and for rural America, we have what's called live remote skills, so that these teams don't have to travel a long distance. They can actually set up a camera and do their skills. So if you're in rural West Virginia and you're like, how am I going to get to Morgantown or Fairmont for an event? We encourage you to do an in-person event, but there are ways for you to compete, especially early in the season. One of the things we really do in our program is emphasize the engineering design process. And we're really, really lucky that there's tables here, because when I give the slide at the workshops for our girl-powered workshops, I actually do a dance to show them how dancing is like the engineering process. And actually, I'm really glad, because my wife here, I don't want her to see my dance skills, which are awful. But basically, we try to reach these students, and we ask them, do they like Taylor Swift or whatever? And we try to show that, Taylor Swift doesn't get on stage and know how to dance. It's the process of learning those steps. And I do a really fantastic dance to show that, but with the tables, sorry, you just don't get to see it. But when we teach the engineering design process, we say it's very similar learning a gymnastics routine or dancing. And it's core of what we do is teaching this process. And whether you're doing organic chemistry or anything like that, there's always a process of how you solve the problem, and we try to teach that in our programs. We provide graphical engineering design notebooks for those students that are interested. Of course, the old-fashioned writing in a notebook, I still like that. A few years ago, we didn't allow electronic design notebooks, and the students really gave me a hard time. They called me old and out of touch. So, but I come from, my background is we always carried around a design notebook. But we started allowing electronic notebooks during the pandemic, and I think this year probably 65-70% of our teams will do electronic notebooks, but I'm still fond of the old written ones. Some of our programs are VEX Go, which is, again, early elementary. This is our VEX IQ game this year. It's the first time ever we've done a shooting game in VEX IQ. So we'll see how that serves us with elementary kids shooting stuff. V5 is our competition for both high school and for VEX U. And we also have an AI competition. All these videos are embedded, so if you want a copy of the presentation, you'll get the videos as well. But we realize that the future is AI, so we now have an advanced competition that uses cameras and GPSs and no driving. It's 100% autonomous programming based on the cameras. And then we have this really cool, if you're an elementary teacher, called the AIM coding robot. It's got a camera in there. It's really, really neat. It's not going to be available till 2025, but it's the best way I've seen to teach coding and AI to students at an elementary level. As I said, we are the robotics and drones provider for JROTC. We do have a virtual skills option as well, primarily for education, but you can play a simulated version of the game. Now, because we have drones kids in here, I had to rush through that VEX stuff because I want to make sure the drones kids get their glory. Why drones? Why am I here talking about drones? So in 2023, almost 900,000 drones in the U.S. The drone market is worth $43 billion. The FAA has created partnerships with schools all over to teach and drone, and it's a huge job market too. And West Virginia is a leader in drones, actually. And so we felt that not all students wanted to do mobile robotics, and we needed to get in. And you can see, by 2025, there's going to be 100,000 jobs just for drone pilots. Just for drone pilots. So you don't have to earn an engineering degree or any type of degree, but you have to know how to fly a drone. And these drones do crop inspection, fence inspection, oil rigs, safety. Obviously, there's military. So there's a huge growth market for drones. And honestly, with what's going on in Europe, I think everybody's seeing how important drones are to the future. So we created this aerial drones competition to provide educators with an alternative pathway for students to learn STEM skills. We fosters a deeper understanding for drone technology, and it provides career opportunities. And I'm really excited because of our students that are competing in drones, 75% don't participate in mobile robotics, so only 25% do. So we truly are reaching an entirely group of students. I asked the 6 students sitting there, 4 of them had never done mobile robotics, 2 had, but they actually liked the drone program better. For us, it's the most equitable program I've ever seen in STEM competitions. I'm going to say that again. It's the most equitable program I've ever seen in STEM education programs. The reason why is the drone is not an engineering program. Our drone program, you take the drone out of the box, and you learn to fly it, and you learn to code it. And I've been to competitions in inner city Dallas, where the inner city, every single person's on Title I lunches, free lunches, and they're competing against the prep school from the suburbs, and they beat them. It's because you take the drone out of the box, and it's about how much you want to practice flying, how much you want to practice on communications, because I have a slide here, but communications is really important with our program. You have to communicate with your teammates, and then can you pick up a laptop and learn how to code? And it's really an equalizer, and it's a really great way to reach rural America and inner city America. So here's a picture of what it looks like. It's basically hoops and stuff like that. This is again, the video is embedded, but our competition this year is called Gravity, and one of the regional championships will be at Fairmont State University in, May, I think? In May. So if you haven't ever seen a drones event, please get with Todd, and he'll get you some dates. But for our drones competition, it's one event, 4 missions. We have piloting, so that's learning how to fly a drone, and you can earn your drones license, your pilot license in our program. Teamwork, so that's 2 drones flying together to score as many points as possible. Autonomous, again, back to coding. And then communications, where we interview and we look at your flight logs and stuff like that. So really good workforce skills. Our impact, I was really hoping that West Virginia was going to be dark blue, because as Todd had said earlier, when we launched the drones program, at the very beginning, West Virginia was leading the entire United States in number of drones teams. And then California and Texas, just by the size of them, surpassed West Virginia. And unfortunately, in the last couple weeks, Virginia has surpassed it too. But I really think it's a bunch of West Virginia people going over to Virginia and registering there. So, but on a per capita basis, West Virginia is by far our leading drone program. They definitely have more teams per capita than the rest of the country. So, this was last year's stats, but you can see it's really taking off. And as JRTC themselves, I think this year will be 2,600 teams, and probably 600 of them will be JRTC. They've really embraced this program. Finally, for you, the educators. I guess I gave a speech one time, and I don't remember saying this, but it was recorded, and my marketing staff thought it was really good, so they put it in all the presentations. But the E in the REC Foundation is for education, but it's also educators. We cannot think of a more important job than an educator. We, of course, recognize our teachers are the most visible educators, but we know that our coaches and our parents are educators in the REC Foundation too. Teachers, coaches, and parents are the E of the REC Foundation. So I guess I said that on stage one time. So we know how important you are to everything that we do. We don't have a program without the educators. So for you, besides the programs I went over, we also have online challenges. They're typically science-based, but not always. They also include like a STEM project where you research, water pollution or filtration or something like that. These are a good way to give your students a self-paced activity, and you can earn prizes. And we have these STEM labs that I've talked about a couple times, and these are self-paced activities. They're free and they're easy, and we have, this one shows how to make a little car. I love this one because you make a car with a rubber band, then you add a wind-up gear mechanism, and then you end up adding a battery, and you do the testing with all three, but it's all self-paced, very strict. In the VEX Go program, as science educators, we have a lot of non-robotic STEM labs too, like building a clock. I wish I had this product when I was learning physics, because we have pendulum exercises and ramp exercises and stuff like that. It's a really good activity for teaching science in elementary school. We also have the Coach Academy. We know when you start a team that you need some support, right? I think that's one mistake that we made and all the robotics competitions made, is recruit teachers to be coaches and not give them any support. So Google funds what we call the Coach Academy. We have 2 staff that are basically on the phone every day of the week except for Sundays, answering your questions, walking through, and that's part of being in our program. It also really helps in the underserved communities. That's why Google sponsors this one. As you can see, a percentage of teams that are Title I or rural, or almost 90% of our teams that are taking advantage of the Coach Academy, are from those demographics. Girl teams, so these are teams that are at least 50% girl, students with disabilities, Native American, Black, African American, Latino, Pacific Islander, Asian. So this Coach Academy is really helping the underserved communities. You could go to California and argue that the Asian community is not underserved there. They pretty much dominate our programs in California, but in other parts of the country, they need support as well. And then we have a coach training summit and series where every week we have basically online. It's actually attended by 300 to 400 educators every single week. It's always amazing to me. And we have a topic every week, and we call that our virtual coach training. Again, real live staff people. So the rest of this is information. I talk about the different kinds of events. I do want to quickly point out that we are the partner for Indigenous America. They've chosen the REC Foundation, and just this year we received over $1 million of grant funding for our Indigenous community to bring robotics to them. And then our Girl Powered initiative is probably the most successful underserved initiative that we've launched. To date, we've had 697 Girl Powered workshops. They're typically in October, so at the end of the month, this number will go up by at least 150. We've done it in 16 countries. Most importantly, though, we have 45,000 teams in the last couple years that have had at least 50% girl. And when I started the REC Foundation, because my daughter wasn't allowed to work on robots, but instead make the sign, 26% of our students were girls, and now we're up to 43%. So we're definitely working to bridge that gender gap. We're also the partner for National Technical Institute for Deaf and Hard of Hearing. We do their robotics program as well. So if you have deaf or hard of hearing students, we have special programs for those students as well. And we're partnered with Society of Women Engineers, which has many chapters in West Virginia. I looked it up, as well as Girl Scouts of America. So if you're interested in these programs, those are some resources for you. And with that, I am going to end this because we are at time. I guess questions and answers afterwards, Todd? Okay, we have time. So I don't want to hold anybody from dessert, especially myself, right? So we saw my favorite slide. But are there any questions for me about our program, of course? And again, I didn't want it just to be a sales pitch for the REC Foundation. I wanted to show you the data behind it. But I can answer questions about the industry in general, or specifically about our programs if you have any. And if you're not one of those people who wants a microphone shoved in your face, I will be hanging out here afterwards too, and I'm happy to give you a business card and tell you about our grant opportunities. But are there any questions for me?